once you reach the length that you desire, then you're ready to put your closure on. I couldn't be more happy with the colors that I've chosen. I think this is my favorite color combination that I've ever done with spiral stitch. Now, to put the ends on, you can use any kind of closure that you want. I am going to use an oval copper closure just because there's a lot of copper and gold colors in my bracelet. But you can use lobster claws, pretty much whatever kind of closure that you would like. Now, I'm going to work on the end that I was finishing up on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and thread on a 5 size 11 seed beads, and I'm going to let them drop down to the base. Then I'm going to pick up, and it really depends on your closure, how big of a hole your closure has. Mine, I know that my size 11 seed beads will go through this closure. So I'm going to pick up 6 seed beads. It's 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to thread on my closure. Now, before I finish this, or before I do anything and let these drop, I'm going to come back through that 5th seed bead that I added up here at the top. And when I pull it down, this will leave me a loop where my clasp is at. Now, if you think that that's going to be too much of a length for you for your clasp, then by all means take it and shorten it. So I'm afraid doing it this way, I may have a little bit too much left over. So I'm actually going to pull my thread right back out. The easiest way to do that is just take your needle off and pull what you need and thread it back on. So I've decided I'm just going to go ahead, because I don't need that much length, I'm just going to thread on 4 seed beads. I'm going to thread on my closure and 3 seed beads. And I'm going to come back through this very first size 11 seed bead that I have here, that I threaded on. So that when I pull, I now have a loop for my closure. And I'm going to take and I'm going to thread down through the core of my spiral to come out of that last spiral that I just finished. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch through and reinforce my loop that I have here. And you do this by going back through your spiral and then through your segment that you had. And then I'm going to go through all the beads here of my loop that I just made with my size 11 seed beads. And this is a reason you kind of want a stiffer needle when you start doing spiral stitch. Number one, it makes it a lot easier on you when you actually start doing the spiral, being able to get into the beads. But number two, it helps you a lot when you're reinforcing. The bead, it comes in handy especially when you use beads that have a matte finish to them, because sometimes it's a lot harder to get back through that matte finish than it is through a shiny finish bead. And another reason why I'm going back through and reinforcing this a few times, I'm doing it not only because I want my closure to be reinforced, but it also reinforces the very end of the bracelet and kind of tightens it up a little bit, those last couple of spirals, so that way I won't have to worry about it getting loose or anything like that. But I normally reinforce, most of the time I do it about 3 times just to be safe. I would rather to be safe than sorry. Okay, so I've reinforced my toggle area, and I have come down through the core, and I've come down 2 beads. And I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to come under the thread, which is between the second and third core bead. I'm going to leave myself just a little loop, and I'm going to take my needle and go through that loop. And when I pull, I want to make sure that that thread, my new little knot, is going to go right in between the two core beads here. And I'm going to do it one more time. And I'm going to stitch through a few more core beads. And if you don't want to put another knot inside the core right there, you can stitch through. Feel free to stitch through. I'm going to do this very last segment here. And I'm going to go in between the thread between my segment and my size 8 core bead and make myself another knot. Now, some people and some teachers that I have been encountered with, they actually do not tie knots in their beadwork, and I do not understand that. I have never in my life done a project where I didn't put a knot in it. To be honest with you, it scares the heebie-jeebies out of me, because I'd hate to put all this time into a project and then not have any knots. And basically what they do is they just stitch their tail thread through as much as they possibly can. And if that works for them, then fantastic, but it just scares the heebie-jeebies out of me. So, I've got my thread, did my knots, threaded through a few beads, and then cut the thread. So, this end is done. So, now I'll actually take my needle, and if you have some extra thread left over, fantastic. Save it for another project if you have enough. If not, you know, you can toss it. And I'm going to thread my needle onto the tail end, where I save myself about 8 to 12 inches. And I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to pick up 4 size 11s and let those drop. I'm going to pick up my other piece of the toggle, and then I'm going to pick up 3 seed beads. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to come back down through the very first seed bead that I threaded on of those 4. And then I'm going to thread down through the core area. And again, we're going to reinforce a couple of really good times. And not only will this help reinforce the toggle area to where it won't come apart, but it will also help to reinforce the very first steps that we did. So that way they'll be good and tight. If you're going to use a toggle, be very careful that you don't get your thread caught on anything, because if you do and you don't realize it till you've already got it tied off, it is a complete disaster and you're upset, and it's just very stressful. So just try and be careful about that. And while I'm finishing off the ends and reinforcing, I'll tell you that it took far less. I really figured it would take me about 150 round beads, because when we did Dutch spiral in a couple of previous videos ago, I used about 160 4mm rounds for the Dutch spiral. But I used a 16-inch strand of these metallic gold beads. I wear about a 7 1/4 inch bracelet. And when I counted the beads on the strand, there were 102 beads on the strand. And I had about 16 beads left off of that strand. So that'll kind of give you an idea as to how many beads you'll need. I believe in Carol's pattern, she says you're going to need about 12 per inch. So that will kind of give you an idea. Now I've reinforced, so I'm going to go through and make a couple of really good knots here. And it's okay if you put 2 knots in one place. Completely fine. And then once again, I never cut my thread next to my knot, so I will stitch through a few beads before I trim the tail. Then I'll take a really nice sharp pair of scissors and trim. So as you can see, we now have a beautiful spiral stitch bracelet, and it's so easy to do, and it would make a wonderful gift for anybody, for a holiday, for a birthday, whatever you want. So be sure, check back next week. We're going to take a break from our technique series, and next week I'm going to teach you flat Cellini spiral that someone has requested, and then the week after I'm going to be teaching a oval encrusted Swarovski ring. Then we'll get back to our technique series. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at our shop, which is 828-245-0306, or you can check us out on the web, which is www.offthebeadedpathbeadstore.com. Hope you have a wonderful day and happy beading.